welcome to the Insights, proudly brought to you by the Campus Magazine, and I am your host, Irene. Yet another fun-packed time for us. I'm updating you about what is going on in Uganda, specifically concerning our resources. Now, recently, news has been going on what is happening to the Ugandan newfound treasure, that is the crude oil that is available in several parts of the country. Now, we are aware that the country has signed several contracts with companies, but concerning the crude oil itself, the production of the crude oil, who does what and at what stage in time. But this Thursday, we are so concerned with what is happening, and many Ugandans, including I myself, I am not so pleased with what the EU came out to do on Thursday. Thursday, the EU passed a resolution that other EU member states should not partner with Uganda and East Africa as a whole to continue with the crude oil pipeline project that has been ongoing. Now, you realize that Uganda signed a contract with one of the most powerful energy companies, that is TotalEnergies, which is French owned, and this, the president calls it that it is an act of dehumanizing Africans, because Total already signed a contract that permits them to carry on with the crude oil company that is constructing pipeline of Tanzania and Uganda, stretching from Tanzania up to Uganda. That is like about more than 800 miles of pipeline. Actually, if this pipeline comes to life, it could be the largest pipeline in the whole world. I think that, could it be that the world is fearing to have Africans take control of their issues, especially concerning resources? Now, we realize that, getting back into history, African states, they have been seen by most European countries as raw material countries, which is not the case. Africans can develop and will develop if this pipeline and other resources are put to use. We saw then our deputy speaker, that is Thomas Tayeva, he came out to describe the EU as an act of imperialism and neocolonialism, because Africans are not given the rights and the right channels to do as they please, because they do not support African states to develop. That's why we are still a developing countries. And then we also saw the Honorable Minister for State for International Affairs, that is Honorable Henry Okello-Oryem. He also described the act as something that is not respectful, and he called for diplomatic mutual respect in handling businesses within member states and two states to create peace and sovereignty and respect sovereignty of different countries. The president does agree with his Minister of State by saying out clearly actually is not happy with this, because the French people don't have anything against Uganda as a country. So why would the EU come up with such resolution? The president did say that if Total cancels their partnership and they go with what the EU has implemented, then they will the country will hope for another another partnership with another company. It doesn't matter which country it will be, but the project for the pipeline must go on. That is according to President Yoweri Museveni, the president for the Republic of Uganda. But the reason the EU does give is that the pipeline is against the environmental and climatic change. It causes like a risk factor on the climate change for the areas, that is Tanzania and Uganda. But that is not what our environmentalists are saying, because our environmentalists are saying that these countries that did vote yes, that the pipeline should not go on, they are clueless about the African terrain. They are clueless, and yet Europe and other states like USA, they do emit more fuels, toxic fuel to the environment than African states. Specifically, like 9 times of destructive fuel is emitted in the environment by other developed states than African states. So people are actually calling this an issue of not allowing African states develop using their raw materials, using their states. And I think that on my own perspective, we have seen on very many occasions where African ideas have been blocked by European countries, not that because they are not good, but because there's something else behind the blockage, which is not it is not a good practice. But on the brighter side, let's also come back to our country. Let's talk about now the stakeholders which are involved in, like the landowners in those areas. We have also seen that most of these landowners, these individual families, most of them have not been compensated for their land where the pipeline will pass through. A few of them have received their compensation, but still most of them claim that they were coerced into accepting the compensation because it is not efficient, it is not equal to the amount of the chunks of land that they have left. Which also pose a question to what our own government is doing. Why must such a big project pass through somebody's land and they are not compensated enough for what they deserve? So with all these things going on, I think I'm going to leave it to you Ugandans. Be vigilant with what is happening in your country. This pipeline could change lives by creating jobs and reducing prices of petroleum within the country, and actually it could reduce inflation in the country if we have our own oil. Just imagine what it could bring. It could bring about development, infrastructure development, employment opportunities, and all those things. So much as the EU says that it is a risk factor to the environment, we should also consider the benefits the country will achieve through the pipeline that will run over 800 miles through Uganda and Tanzania. This is such a good project, but from me and the campus at home, I'm going to leave it at you, our audience. What do you think about this? Was it necessary to pass such a resolution against Uganda and Tanzania, or we have not done enough to secure the environment? Now do comment after watching this video at www.thecampus magazine. At the same time, do follow us on YouTube at the Campus magazine. From me, Irene, bye bye.